Check 1 2, check 1 2. Good morning, everybody. I will be with you in just a moment. As usual, running just a few minutes behind here. Let's let people get online before we get started here. Enjoy my morning ditty. Let's do a quick check. We'll be getting the show started in just a moment, everybody. All right. As I love to say, let's get it going. Most of you know that Oop. Goof that up. Thought I had the intro nice and smooth there, but I didn't. Good morning, everybody. It's August 24th, 2023. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Striking, here on the Digital Media Network, in the digital media world. So glad to be here hosting DYOR Live, DYOR Media Network's morning show in the long form. And I start to describe that as the long form show because I've started a new little thing on the request of a couple other influencers here to say, get your videos shorter and out there more. So I have a new show called DYOR Now, which is just 5 to 15 minute videos that I put out. This one's DYOR Live because it's live in the morning. DYOR Now is short form videos, either live or recorded, put out later in the day. But once again, so glad to be here this morning. So glad for everybody watching on YouTube. Let's see if we can get some statistics already. Look at that. We got 5 people on YouTube. Woo! But LinkedIn doing well. We've got streaming on Twitch. And we've gone back to Twitter streaming as well. So if you're having trouble with YouTube, and when you want to multitask on your phone, one of the things you can do is switch over to your Twitter app and catch us there. And Twitter plays the sound in the background while you multitask on your device. Well, once again, we got a good day for you today. We have... hold on, Pedro's just you and me here. Pedro, I got you in the background there. Are you there? I hear him chewing, so he's there. All right.
Yeah,
so,
sorry about that. Yeah, I apologize. Yeah,
that's all right. I'm just introing the show. But today we got a good show for you today. As many of you know, last week I was at the Blockchain Futurist Conference in Toronto, Ontario. Thanks to the crew at Untraceable and the Blockchain Conference for giving me a press pass for that, so I could wander around and interview people. And if anyone has been following this show lately, they've heard me talk endlessly about real-world assets and trading them. And being involved with a DAO in Switzerland now that is going to start legally being the space completely legal for that. I pay attention to it more, and so I was watching the board of the speakers coming up, or I should say the app of the speakers coming up, and it said this guy named Adam Kai of Virgo Exchange in Virgo CX in Toronto is going to be speaking about how his exchange is getting ready for real world assets. So I watched his speech and I said, I gotta have that guy on this show. So I recorded just a short video about him, or with him, about what he was talking about, and we'll have that later for you in the second half of the show. But right now we're gonna talk about the normal stuff, the news of the day. Pedro, you had mentioned the Robinhood news. Not much, a lot of news going on lately, but Robinhood was secretly piling away some Bitcoin. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, so they actually went through and, they've been liquidating, and we've heard about their trials and their troubles. They've few quarters, they got rid of some of their, cryptocurrency offerings, to like Dogecoin. I think did they bring in, no, yeah, they brought Dogecoin in. And they were offering Bitcoin and a lot of other things. And this year, they kind of pulled a lot of those coins away off of their market to let people buy. So right. It was almost like a bait and switch. While at the same time, they're out there and they're purchasing cryptocurrency. So they literally purchased $3 billion worth over the last year. I mean, if you think about that, Bitcoin's, I think it's $600 billion.
Why'd they purchase so much?
Well, I personally think like they see what's the writing on the wall. I mean, we heard about Michael Burr going through and placing the $1.3 billion short literally on the S&P 500. So something is being set up. Most people don't pay attention to this stuff. So it's like something's come. We know, that the BRICS currency is now about 50 to 1 US dollars. So that's the thing that's out there floating in the ether. So there's a lot of pun intended. So there's so much stuff going on right now that is almost on the underbelly of things that it's worrisome. What's going on with crude oil? And you're like, well, what does that have to do with Bitcoin? Crude oil is out there right now increasing. It's dramatically going up. And especially with people starting to use their own currency versus using the petrodollar, it's right. Weakening the American dollar and weakening everything it's strengthening everything else around the world and weakening the US economy. And so we're seeing these things happen right now. And so I personally think the reason why Robinhood has went out and bought Bitcoin is as more or less a security for their shorts.
Right, something to keep on their balance sheet.
Exactly, something to keep on the balance sheet. So if they drop and they would basically become worthless, i.e., let's say we have another GFC, then, or if not worse, Great Depression, at two times around, they've got assets, they got real assets, so they can go through and make moves with. So
right,
real interesting.
Well, the BRICS thing is certainly interesting. But what I'd like to tell everybody is that the modern financial system that was created by the wealthier nations of the world, meaning the G7 and so forth, it took a long time to put together. It took a long time to build the infrastructure. They built the Bank of International Settlements in Switzerland that works as the central bank for all the central banks and settles all the transactions. And everyone is assuming that all these heads of state from these countries can just show up in South Africa and just get something like that going. I mean, these are countries that barely have any working government in their own countries. They're not here. I'm going to bring you off the screen for a sec to put my news thing up here. I did a good story yesterday about the. No, that's not it. This one. No, that's not it either. Damn it. What the hell is it? From transparency.org, the corruption index for the world. And it lists every country and the amount of corruption in the country, real or perceived, and it includes the ease of doing business and all that. And let me read to you. Let me read to you, and everyone out there, listen. This is everyone that when you read Twitter, and you talk about people say, "Oh, the dollar's over, the BRICS is it, woohoo!" Just know that it's a flash in the pan, and it's going to go away for this reason I'm about to read you here. And I'm going to read them in order of their names of BRICS. Brazil, 94 out of 180 countries. It means they're in the bottom half of countries that are economically viable, stable, and corrupt. Russia, 137. They're 40th from the bottom. India, 85. They're at least on the top half. China, 65. Getting better, top third. South Africa, 72. Then let me read you the G7. The US, 24. Canada, 14th out of 180. UK, 18th. Japan tied to the 18th. Germany, 9. France, 21. Italy, 41st place. Of the other countries that want to join the BRICS, or at least they're announcing, there's a lot of misinformation in this. Like they said, oh, Morocco's going to in on it. And Morocco said, we're not doing that. That's stupid. We'll stay with trading with our own currency and the euro for now. Thank you. The other countries, Algeria, 116th. Bangladesh, 147th. Venezuela is saying, we're in yet. They're the third from the bottom. There's only 3 worse countries in the world financially than Venezuela. South Sudan, Syria, and Somalia. These are the people and countries that people are saying we're going to de-dollarize the world with. Okay, I get it. You're tired of the rules that the U.S. puts on currency and all the anti-corruption and money laundering rules. I get that. But here's a good example, Pedro. Indians announced that they are buying 1 million barrels of oil from the Emiratis, and they're paying in rupees. Made a big deal about it, went all over the press. They didn't use dollars, all that kind of stuff. Guess what the Emirati dirham actually is?
I don't know.
It's a U.S. dollar. The Emirati dirham is a pegged currency to the U.S. dollar. It's fully backed by the Federal Reserve of the United States. I don't mean Treasury? FDIC. I mean it's
Treasury.
Yeah, Treasury by the Treasury. And it's completely pegged. And they don't have their own monetary policy other than just keep everything going smoothly. So everybody watching this news about the BRICS, you got to look at the big picture. Sorry, go ahead, Pedro.
Well, I hear the big picture, but I also know that all those countries that you named off produce about 80% of the world's goods, from food to technology. So they may be in the bottom, but if they were to sit there and stick a finger up in the air and say, no, we're not doing this, the rest of the world would fall on their face for at least 6 months to a year. And we saw what happened during COVID. And there was still trade going. It was just backlog. Imagine if they simply just said, here's the finger. We don't need you guys. We're going to trade internally. And all of a sudden, for about, I would give it maybe a year, there will be just nothing. Because it'd be a tenth of whatever goods and services that are being pushed out currently now. And so we would see hyperinflation that would skyrocket. We think it's bad now. We're talking double digits, if not triple digit percentage jumps within weeks. So this is where I'm saying is, yeah, this is a big deal because these people are the ones who are producing. Now, I think it's good and important that America is out there trying to create factories down in Mexico, trying to create other factories in places where they can monopolize on a low income base. But
right.
Ultimately, still, it's not feasible. Like they very much at any period in time could sit there and throw their fingers up and say, we're done. And the rest of the world would run to them. And this is where, for me, I see your point very much. It's valid, but it's almost like we're sitting there saying, let them eat cake. And we're forgetting that they're the backbone.
I'm glad you and I, when we do this, have slightly different viewpoints on things, because I do disagree with you on them having the ability to say no to the rest of the world, simply because they may produce 80% of the goods, but we buy 80% of the goods. And so there's no trade, between Kazakhstan and Algeria. There's no trade between Nigeria and Bangladesh, except for small little, things. There's no major trade. That means there's no liquidity in any of those markets. There's no way. Like, a good example is, say these groups said, all right, we're gonna put the screw, like OPEC did to us in the 1970s. We're gonna put the screws to them and limit the goods they buy. They really put the screws to us, I tell you that. But we learned a lesson. We warehouse a ton of oil now, so they can't do that anymore. We warehouse all sorts of goods. We may be behind in semiconductors and that kind of stuff. But the U.S. and Canada, for a large part Mexico, are independent on food and all that. So we're not really worried about that type of stuff. But these leaders can say all they want. They're looking for their exit liquidity, as I say. If they can get a gold-backed currency, they can. That's the tornado cash for all these despot leaders. It's a gold-backed currency, because then they can put it into gold, and then they can take it out wherever, and it's clean, it's gold. But what these guys are looking for is not what their population wants. Their population, who's got a little factory of making shirts or beaded stuff or shoes or whatever it is, they can't survive 6 months without any orders. They're like, wait a minute, I got a family to feed. I got employees to pay. And you'll see a lot of as soon as the government would hint at saying, oh, we're shutting down trade with the U.S. or Canada or Europe, there would be an instant coup in that country. They'd be like, no. Because then most of those countries have a military that needs to get paid. And most of those militaries get paid by baksheesh. They have their small salary, but they get their bribery also from the local people to keep them safe. And as soon as those guys aren't getting paid, they're like, wait a minute, this leader of ours, what the hell did he go to South Africa for and hook up with all these other dipshits in these countries around us, instead of having an open market to the U.S.? So I look at it a little differently. I see the nefariousness and the bad things that come from despot leaders around the world. And I also see the lack of liquidity. Imagine how much the foreign currencies traders are going to make in this. They are going to just drain the liquidity out of every currency that isn't strong in the BRICS network. Here's a good example. I used this on my short form video yesterday. Imagine Kazakhstan wants to sell a ton of oil to Bangladesh. Now, Bangladesh's currency is not very liquid in the first place. So Kazakhstan's going to say, well, you got to pay us in either bricks or our Kazakhstani money. Bangladesh is going to have to go out in the market and buy that. Or they're going to give them their Bangladeshi money, and Kazakhstan's just going to dump it on the market. The currency traders I've found are the smartest, fastest people in trading in all of this business of finances. They'll sniff that trade out before it happens, and they will front run the shit out of that thing, and they will do that over and over and over and over between all these countries. Even if they have a bank of international settlements like we do, they'll front run those things. And they can't do that with dollars and euros because the market is too vast. Nobody can put together the amount of money needed to really arbitrage the US dollar enough to affect the currency and make a ton of money. But these guys will hammer these currencies. Bam, bam. They're drooling. That when the market in Europe went away between all the currencies, and that kind of took the fire out of the foreign currency guys because they could manipulate that very well, and they had spies in all the central banks, and so they knew when big things were going to come, and they could front run everything. That's going to happen here because all these countries are in the bottom half of the corruption index. and so every time someone says, every time a central bank or a big company say, okay, we're about to pay a huge amount of money, we got to do a big foreign exchange thing, that word will leak and they'll get front run. And liquidity, just like watching bots drain the liquidity out of crypto projects, $1 at a time, that'll happen with these BRICS countries. And
it's going to be interesting.
I can see it coming. I used to watch when I used to work in New York. Some weeks, I would have to. This is before computers, so I would have to. The trades that didn't match up from the day before were called the breaks, and now they trades that don't match up basically don't happen anymore because it's electronic. But the guys doing the open outcry would goof things up now and then, and so they'd have the breaks, and someone would have to go in at 5 a.m. to get the big, huge dot matrix printout of trades and go through them for the whole thing with the opposing traders' assistants and make sure everything was fine. And I remember getting there one time, and this whole desk that these guys I worked with all day was already there up and running at 5 a.m. And I'm like, guys, what the hell are you doing here? And they're like, oh, we trade foreign currencies before our market's open. I was like, why? He's like, oh, because we've got, basically, they had connections with the foreign currency desks over in Europe, and so they knew what was going to happen before the market opened in the U.S., and so they would set positions and then make a bunch of money doing it. And if they were doing that in that small scale, just between the old European countries and the U.S., these guys are going to trade the shit out of the BRICS countries and just wreck them. They'll get wrecked so fast. There'll be runs on currencies. People will be selling their gold behind the scenes without anyone knowing. They'll be stealing the gold. Imagine trusting Putin with 10,000 tons of gold. He's going to steal half of it and then put a gun to the auditor's head and say, "How much do we have?" "It's all here, boss." "Okay, thanks." And so I may be a bit negative about this.
No, man, I think it's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was saying I may be a bit negative about this, but that's how the world works, and that's how it works in shitty countries. I've traveled to tons of them for work. I see how they operate. It's how the world works. And unless you have a strong law enforcement system and a little bit of morality, you end up with a lot of corruption. And when you have a lot of corruption, economic policies just don't work. And that's the history of Africa and a bunch of these countries. So I could go on. I literally could go on forever about this, but.
I think it's a two-edged sword because you're right on that aspect, yeah, very much. But we've seen Mexico clean up their system. We've seen a number of countries really trying to clean up and take care of a lot of the corruption within itself.
I agree with that, yeah.
So it's one of those things that you can sit there and say, I can make money now, right, and be, wealthy within a area. It's like if you're the kingpin in a slum, it's not the best place to be a kingpin, right? But if you're a kingpin, in downtown Chicago or downtown Greenwich, Connecticut, right, where it's like plush and beautiful, which one is better? When you look at China, when you look at, I think, Brazil, a lot of these countries are moving up. The corruption is being taken care of. So, like I said, it's interesting to sit there and see the play that is actually happening. I think personally, right now, they may be crushed, very much so. I mean, I think you're 100% right. But I don't think she is thinking with a, like a 2-year plan, or a 3-year plan. She's very much calculated in everything he's doing. I mean, he's played a brilliant game since 2008 by garnering respect with the rest of the world. I used to say it like this in high school, right? The cool kids at the top, they hold social equity up to a point, because when the lower 50, 60% just get tired of their BS, the cool kids are only top maybe 2%, 3% in reality. And that's almost how I look at it in a world standing. She was one of the lowest guys when he stepped into office. Now, dude, he's gaining a lot of respect and a lot of stuff. Now, there are a lot of atrocious things that he's doing, and I don't like Xi. I personally do not like the policies of the CCP and what they're doing, with the religious.
Nobody does. Even they don't. Yeah. But it just happens.
Yeah, exactly. But the reality of this, even with all of that, he's still got a decent standing among why am I forgetting what it's called? And then United Nations, he's got a decent standing among his group of people. And there's a substantial amount of force behind them. So it wouldn't be that hard in the next 3 to 5 years, again, to progress. I mean, he's played very smartly in relationship to his petro yuan. People are starting to use it now. Dude, 2010, 2015, that would still be unheard of. People are using it. And here's the thing. We do not produce 70% of the world's goods anymore. They don't need us like they used to.
That's true.
And so they could easily walk away and create their own system. And that's where I sit there. I mean, we see what's going on in South Africa and all throughout the African continent as they are moving into a first world continent, as people keep evolving. And yes, there's still a lot of corruption, but they are making progress. Look at Kenya, look at South Africa, right, with the infrastructure of the internet, how they're really trying to push that forward for education. Same thing with what's it called? There's like 6 or 7 other countries. Now, granted, I know you're like, well, there's like 30 countries there. Yeah. But prior to that, there was maybe 1 or 2 countries that were even remotely second world countries. So
that's true. Yeah, that's true. So, those are good points about that. But I always like to counter with once a despot leader, always a despot leader. And the fact is that Z has gone from rags to riches in politics, and the only way you do that is by stealing. And he's incredibly wealthy, like Putin. And I realize he has all the assets of the Chinese government at his beck and call. But his wealth has been reported in the billions, and they've uncovered all the different little things that he's squirreled away there. And people are like, well, his salary is only, equivalent of $500,000 a year. How did he become so wealthy and all that? And they're like, well, he employed the law firm Dewey, Cheatham and Howe. He's like, he said he's gotten wealthy the old-fashioned way by stealing it from his economy and his country. Putin's done it. At least I'll give Z a little credit in that it's done systematically, because that's just the way the Chinese economy works and their government works. Whereas Putin has just stolen it. And shot people. Like another one of his former colleagues, his plane fell out of the sky last night. And all his other colleagues are falling backwards out of hotels that they never checked into. And so that's an organized crime family over there in Russia and in China. It's just the systematic way it happens. And when this system is designed that way, it's not designed to, keep the proletariat safe. And that's what our banking system ultimately does. The government, there's plenty of disagreements on how and the way that happens and all that. But ultimately, for the past, 100 years or so, we've had a very safe banking system. And even before that, we had a safe one, just didn't have any controls. Once we put some controls on it to prevent the huge downs and huge ups, and bring a little safety to it, it's worked very, very well at bringing wealth to the world that's never been seen before. And so I'm not that confident on the BRICS, and I'll have more about that. But it's time to transition topics for the day. One of which I want to thank Zach Humphreys for. Was on his show yesterday, and like I said, I don't know anything about SHIB that much, but I'm starting to learn about it. And if I just use the word SHIB, the YouTube algorithm will bump us up a bazillion places. So hey, Shibarian, hey, how you doing? But anyway, they sorted out the launch of their Shibarian level 2 blockchain, and now everything seems to be falling into place for them. Zach, I look forward to having you on my show another day and going back on your show. We had a great discussion about stuff with him, and also with Austin Hilton. And it was good. I haven't met Austin yet, but I met him online. So that was a good conversation we had about all different types of things. And I look forward to doing it again with them. But the topic of the day, which we're going to get to after the commercial here, is real-world assets. But before we get to that, I'm going to talk about, as everyone knows, I'm sponsored by Auditchain here. Auditchain's in the business of revolutionizing the way the financial assurance and reporting does, trying to eliminate all the malfeasance that goes on in the reporting industry, or I should say just the incompetence. With their Luca software suite that sits on a company's accounting system and makes sure that they file things correctly, and their Pacioli validating nodes out on the blockchain. That publicly validate and store the results on the blockchain for everybody, so that anyone, especially accountants and other consultants, auditors and stuff, can audit any company out there in minutes and audit their financial statements, not audit the company. So with that, let's hear from me about Auditchain.
Most of you know that crypto exchanges have been taking a beating about transparency, and many groups out there are trying to solve that. But Auditchain has already done that. Auditchain's protocols and network of validators can mathematically prove that a company's entire financial state, not just proof of reserves, but a proof of state, and whether or not that company is providing accurate reporting and information to the respective government regulators and to the public. Seriously, you and I can check crypto companies and traditional companies' financial reports for transparency and accuracy using a logic and reasoning engine called Pacioli that records its output where? On the blockchain. Seriously, ladies and gentlemen, blockchain technology is now able to be used to check on traditional companies. Behind me is a list of companies that compromise the S&P 500, S&P 100. In essence, the largest U.S. companies by size. More than one quarter, 29 out of 100, have problems with their reports. Remember, accounting and other corporate systems are garbage in and garbage out. So if there are problems with the data out for these companies, in red here, what does that mean? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. There are problems with the data going in. And this was figured out not by accounting or auditing firms and fleets of consultants. This was compiled and reported on by Auditchain's Pacioli validating nodes and took only 5 minutes. It's revolutionary and it's a disruptor technology. Auditchain.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Before we get into real-world assets, so everybody wants to know, how's the market doing? Pedro's been on a roll lately interpreting what the charts are doing. Pedro, what's going on with Bitcoin and the overall market here in the world of digital assets?
It's real interesting. We've actually got some pretty amazing stuff going on here. So like I've talked about with that big sell-off, right, last week, like we were saying. And I know this looks like a jumbled spaghetti mess, but there is method to this madness. So a lot of these lines, I want to make sure you guys understand, are different time frames that I'm able to look at a quick notice, okay? So every one of these different lines, colors have a meaning. And they're higher time frame zones, I always tell you guys, look at the higher time frames, right? Because it's the higher time frame to communicate to us what direction to push. I'm always talking about volume, right? What's going on with the volume? You can sit there and see there is a liquidity again crunch as we're selling off. Now, important enough to note here is that we came up and we hit our area of supply here, like I talked about months ago on the show, that 30,000, and then we kind of went sideways. I was talking about how we should see a sell-off down to these lower levels of 25,000, and then a bounce back up to get a retracement into these higher lows, and then we'll see another sell-off to that 20,000-ish area, if not further down. We are starting to see a pickup, so we are probably going to get, by the end of the week, will probably be a higher. And the reason why I say this is people are they started shorting this week or last week in Bitcoin. They really started pushing it down, as we can see here. Right, this was the sell-off from last week. We saw an increase of shorts here. So this week it was. I was hoping, I was really hoping that we would actually see a higher push up, and like I said, to the 26, which we hit, but more of that 26, 28 mark area here at these levels where these moving average are sitting at. Okay, and forgive me, they're not aligned. I've had a pretty crazy week, so I'm gonna have to be at the charts here, so forgive me. But and Tom knows my week has been a little nuts, so I apologize.
Yes, it has. So we're glad to have you back on the show.
Thanks, brother. So these areas here are really important in that aspect. That if we can't reach up to here this week, that means this is very bearish. Okay, that we're having again liquidity crunch. So, and it's slowing down. So it's going to be really interesting to see Sunday evening into Monday. If we go up with no real bottom wick here, I see us then literally selling off again. And I even seen this get back up to these 28,000, 26,000 area marks. I see it's continuing down. So it all depends on how we close and then into Sunday money. So that's it right here. Be ready. Again, I hate to do this to you guys, but the reality is it's not boding well for the cryptocurrency, even though Robinhood has been buying. So, and a lot of other institutions have been buying Bitcoin.
Yeah, they're loading up, but 3 billion in Bitcoin is not that much anymore.
It's true. I don't disagree.
Isn't that crazy to say?
Well, I think it's 600,000 is the shorts and long. I used to have, I don't have it here anymore, but you can, the capitalization of it. I forget exactly how much it is. I think it's 600 billion, right? Or is it 800 billion?
Bitcoin is no, it's 400 billion right now.
Oh, 400 billion. So if you think 3 billion, they have point right now, according to where they're at, they have $3 billion at Bitcoin being at 30, right? And it's 400 billion capitalization. So they have basically like 0.7% of the supply, one person. Yeah. So, or one entity. So that's a big deal. I know you're like, well, that doesn't seem like much. Well, it is.
But of the total, it is. You know, they're almost in the 1%er club, and we all know from all digital assets, a 1%er club is the whale club.
Exactly, and that's a huge deal. And so as this continues to move up, it's just a hedge. I think it's a hedge for them to protect themselves. Now that's Bitcoin here. Now let's jump real quick. And there's a few little things I want to bring up because you did say SHIB, and I haven't. I've kind of stuck to just Bitcoin, but I want to bring up SHIB because Shibarium and everything that correlates with it, right? It's all one big happy family. And I've talked about SHIB when I used to do my own show quite a bit. And I've mentioned these certain areas here that have been instrumental when it comes to the market and how it's moving. So let me real quick point this out. So when the market was, I think we were still up here when I was doing my show. Here we are. I was up in this area here and we were coming down, and I said, guys, be ready for us to come down to that 600 mark area here. Like, this is where we're headed. And I remember putting this in, and I literally had hate speech from people saying,
I know, they're a rough crowd, aren't they?
Yeah, like I was like,
It's either moon or go home, man.
Yeah, like literally. And I was sitting there, I was like, holy, chill. Like, look, I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, right? Like, I have SHIB. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want SHIB to do very well. But the reality is the charts were telling me after this wick came in last year, I said, yeah, we're coming down to these levels. So now we've hit, and I hate to say, but with all this new tech and all this new utility, we still aren't seeing major volume. We're actually seeing selling volume come in. So unfortunately for me, when I look at SHIB here, I see SHIB continuing down because we had a bunch of buyers coming in, and then we had a huge amount of sell-offs, in which with more volume going in on the sell. You can see here volume was going up, but see how this big huge volume where we had the sell-off from last week, and now if we were going to have a continuation, we would have seen more green volume coming in. So this slow amount of sellers, people are resting. Most likely, again, just like with Bitcoin, we're going to see SHIB head down again, and this is good. And the reason why this is good is because the people down in here that want to buy SHIB, the whales, are on the 620, 600 mark area. This area is good area for them to buy. They want to buy down here. You can see it, right? We can see that they like buying at these levels. So the push up here, again, is a good thing. We've also hit higher time frame moving averages, which again is a good sign that we are piercing through these. And in addition to that, we are also holding a higher low here, right? So as long as we don't go below that, what is that, that 600 mark, we should be good. And if we do, but we see a big wick that comes in, that looks similar to something like, oh, it has not had it here. All right. So, but this is what we want to see on the week, where basically a reverse of this.
Right. All right, but Pedro, I've got an 11 o'clock hard stop, so I got to get to Adam's interview here in Real World Assets. I promised them that I'd have it on there, and their marketing people are doing it. But thank you for the review of SHIB. We're going to do SHIB again, so we can get the attention of some of those knuckleheads over in that community. But anyway, thank you for that, Pedro. Appreciate it. This one won't take that long. This is one of my shorter interviews. As everyone, like I said earlier, everyone knows I've been hot on the real world asset thing lately. And this headline hit me here the other day or yesterday, I think. MakerDAO supercharges their real world assets with another $2.5 billion. I swear this MakerDAO, they can just print money. It is amazing how they just put things, they're unstoppable. They're just unstoppable. It's really amazing to see how that does, and everyone's trying to imitate it. Everyone is. There's now companies that are set up just to start DAOs for people in wherever jurisdiction they are. There's very few legal jurisdictions. Like I met at the show in Canada, I met a bunch of Canadian DAOs, and they're all like, "Oh, we're Canadian, but we're in Panama," And a lot of the ones in the U.S. Oh yeah. We're at a DAO in the U.S. We're in the Bermuda, and it's not even legal there either. It's just, one hop. But anyway, I saw Adam Kai of Virgo CX on there talking about their real-world asset things going on in their exchange. And I had invited him to have a good talk. And so I'm going to play that interview now. It's a short one, but just stick with me. And then Pedro and I will talk about this type of stuff afterwards. Oh, didn't auto start. All right, I'm recording. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the area of real-world assets strikes again, and I've got Adam Kai of Virgo CX here, based in Toronto, Ontario. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for inviting.
Oh, you're welcome. Adam's come on here to DYOR Live because, as you know, we're doing a series of shows and topics about real-world assets becoming tradable on the blockchain. Now, Adam, I heard you speak earlier talking about the potential size of the market, and it really is unbelievably a large size, but we know it's difficult to get real estate and other physical assets, their ownership with legal jurisdiction onto a blockchain tradable thing. If that can be solved here in Canada, do you see Canada adopting digital trading of real-world assets, such as their real estate?
Yes, actually, I hold strong belief that Canada can be the front runners in terms of the real world assets around the globe. So the reason for that is we are already seeing very positive regulatory movements to be able to offer compliant solutions to fractionize a single real estate project. Can be a commercial properties, can be residentials. And also, what gets me real exciting is not only being able to fractionize real estate investment, because this could be done in a lot of other ways, such as public REITs, but also the ability to tokenize the RWAs so it can be deeply integrated with the decentralized finance network. Such as collateralized loan. Such as DAX trading. This is fascinating.
It really is, and the ability to tokenize it, as you say, to allow more people, into it, the lower level investors to buy into real estate, to buy into more expensive physical assets that seem to be appreciating a lot faster than the lower level assets, is a win-win for everybody. So how do you see Virgo changing as a company to grow with real world assets?
That's a really good question. So we start off as a crypto trading platform. There are actually tons of crypto trading platforms out there. So we always be thinking that what's the market size, what's the market we really want to address so that Virgo Group can grow to a level that's very quick, right? And it's unlimited potential. So I think we actually spend quite a bit of time researching to RWA, especially in the real estate assets. We believe with our expertise in the blockchain, with our understanding of how to construct a trading platform, this is certainly a good opportunity for Virgo to step in to offer one of the first in Canada, allow people to raise money for the real estate, to trade fractionized real estate units, to be able to tokenize it. So we want to be able to do that sometime later this year or beginning of next year.
All right, well, you have grand plans for all of this, but is the government of Canada ready to go along with this? Or do you see any regulatory issues?
Of course, I cannot say for sure, but I think with our consultancy with our legal counsel and also the understanding of the market presidency, we have a strong confidence this is doable. This is certainly not a dream. People talk about it. And it's certainly not like 5 to 10 years down the road. I'm thinking that this can be done in the next 1 year for sure.
That's very interesting. It's very interesting. Now, with real-world assets, a lot of people in crypto know about real-world assets and digital assets, but the mass market does not understand it yet. How do you see Virgo getting the message out about real-world assets to the larger population of Canada?
That's a good question too. So I think for real-world assets, from my opinion, it's actually easier to do the education compared to crypto, because the mass public probably still don't understand what's the underlying value for Bitcoin. And if we can tell people about real estate, we tell them why the RW assets, what's the utility to bring them on blockchain, the things that I mentioned earlier, I think it's really just to educate them the use case for the assets they're very familiar with. So I think it should be actually easier as long as we have a proper framework that is compliant, trustworthy, and then we can get all the money even into this space.
Well, everybody, you heard it from Adam Kai first here. Canada's ready for it, and he believes the people of Canada are ready to invest in real-world assets. Adam, thank you for coming on DYOR Live today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You too.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Adam Kai with Virgo Exchange. They're doing pretty well. They're moving away from just trading cryptocurrencies and being an exchange for that into getting ready for the tokenization of real-world assets, as Adam just explained to us. Not an easy thing, but they're getting ready for it because there are plenty of companies out there solving the legal and ownership and provenance issues, provenance of ownership. Do you have the right to sell something online? Do you have the right to sell it at all? In the real world, there's all kinds of things that in court or established law via either legislation or by courts. There are things like titles and deeds and all this type of stuff that has long histories, well before the United States was founded. and this type of stuff. And just switching that over onto the blockchain is not so easy. But it is happening. It is happening. In Pedro, one of these days you're going to be doing the charts here talking about, well, the price of multifamily housing is, there's a big wick on the downside of it, but thankfully the price of condos in Florida has a big wick on the upside, so it's going to average it out and consolidate over the next few months. And so we'll see all sorts of different things come online.
I'm looking forward to that, actually. It's going to be really, the things that you're going to be able to trade is everything. I mean, Rihanna, like the new Rihanna is coming out, right? There's going to be crypto, NFTs, and I mean, it's going to be fun.
All right, that's all I got. That's our last show of the week here today. Pedro, thanks for coming on. Pay attention to my, I'm going to try and put out some more of my DYOR Now shorts to try and grab some more eyeballs on the great algorithm and push the content out there. So for those of you watching this, for those of you that got to the end of this show, thank you very much. It's always a rare breed that does. But we do get a bunch of people that do watch it in the replays that get to the end according to the stats. So thank you for that. And pay attention to my DYOR Now shorts, please. Watch them and forward them on, share them, like them, do all those normal things you can. Pedro, before we go, any last things you got to say?
No, my peoples, all I got to say is much love, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon, and have a great weekend.
All right, everybody. As they say, my name is Tom, otherwise known as Striking, here in the digital media world. On behalf of myself and Pedro and Adam Kai, our guest today, thank you. We will see you next week, so be there. All right.
Perfect, dude. Awesome. Dude, pleasure, dude.